Seems to be around leadership. I think they're aware. I think they believe in what we're doing. I think it's a big part of it. The approach. That's that conversation. So he knows more of the people. Spending so much time. It's all everything I've seen. Not the good way. Not a fun way. So
I don't know how you guys had to give it up. I don't know how you, but yeah, oh yeah. We'll check out.
well,
Karen, please, you don't mind research.
So,
And I was like,
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March meeting of the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. We're very pleased to have you join us here today. Certainly, it's a momentous day today for many reasons, and we'll jump right out into our meeting. Again, it's great to be with you, and I really want to thank Vincennes University and the people from Maine at Plainfield for hosting us today. It's a wonderful facility, beautiful facility, and we look more to hear more about it in a few minutes when we have in our public square. But at this time, I'd like to introduce Chuck Johnson, president of Vincennes University, to share his welcome.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, everyone. We certainly appreciate having the opportunity to be here, and honestly, I was just going to be in the background, so you caught me a little off guard here.
I'm sorry about that.
Thanks so much. We're very proud of the partnerships we have. We're proud of the space that the town of Plainfield has provided for this great opportunity for this part of the county and the region. And we're also very, very pleased with the great industry partnerships you're going to hear some about today a little bit, and what they mean in terms of how we're changing, maybe how higher education and industry and K-12 partnerships can work to really create a true ecosystem for our workforce and our talent and retention of our great people here in Indiana. Thanks so much for being here. We're glad you're here. Teresa, congratulations and best of wishes to you.
Thank you, Chuck. Now I'll ask Secretary Ann Bowen if she will do the roll call.
Mike Galley,
Present.
Edward Berger,
Present.
Dennis Bland, Ann Bowen, present, Judd Fisher,
Here.
Bill Hanna,
here.
Alan Hubbard,
Here.
Chris Lamote,
Here.
Pepper Mulheron, here, Chris Murphy,
Here.
Dan Peterson,
Here.
Beverly Pitts, John Pop,
Here.
and Erica Studerman.
President.
So it's clear we do indeed have a quorum today, so thank you very much for that. Well, as you know, registration is currently open for the Commission's annual H. Kent Weldon Conference for Higher Education, which will be held April 12th. And we're very delighted that Stephen Moray, President and CEO of Strata Education Network, will participate in the event's keynote session this year and discuss some very important career relevance issues that we're all faced with. I'd also like to just note that recently I've made some appointments to our subcommittees and appreciate those folks agreeing to serve on those committees. And we've asked Bill Hannon to serve on the Academic Affairs and Quality Committee and General Erica Studerman to serve on the Student Success and Completion Committee. Both of them bring exceptional backgrounds that I think are really going to make them great contributors to each of these two committees. I do have a handout for you that shares those committee assignments for all, if you've forgotten which committees you're on and chairs, as well as the dates of those committee meetings as they are laid out for the remainder of this year. So please reference that. You know, I also just want to remind everyone reluctantly that Ann Bowen, our student trustee, will be having her last meeting in June. So we still got her for one more meeting, but the selection process for our student commission member is underway. So if you have candidates from your respective institutions that you would like to recommend and get engaged, please do so. I saw Ann had a wonderful Facebook post highlighting her experiences and how much she has enjoyed that and encouraging others to submit their credentials. There is an application process. You can go to the commission's website and the applications will be open through April the 1st. And there will be a committee of student leaders that will review those applications, conduct interviews, and then make a recommendation to the governor, who will then make the appropriate appointment. So if you have candidates, please encourage them to do so. I'll have a few more things to say a little bit later in our program, but that concludes my chair's comments for the current time. And I'll turn it over to Commissioner Lummers for her comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is my last commissioner's report, and as best I can calculate, I think I've provided approximately 150 commissioners' reports in the years that I've been in this role. It was always my opportunity to highlight key events and issues, as well as to acknowledge the good work that the commission staff have been engaged in doing. Appropriately, I've always followed the chair's remarks and have served alongside 10 members who have led this commission as chair. It's the people, the staff, and the commission members, and institutional, philanthropic, and government partners that I will miss the most when I leave. I wish I didn't like this job so much. Having said that, it's my hope that during this year, I remember when I left the Senate, I said the same thing, that you'll miss the people. But you also hope that you did something that mattered. So I hope that during these years, we've done things that mattered as well. As I said in my State of Higher Education address, this job has always been more about a mission than a job. And I think those of you who have served here feel the same way as well. And as the commission transitions to new leadership, I'm confident that it's going to be an exciting time for higher education in the commission. I'm also convinced that there are going to be a lot of challenges facing us to ensure that more Hoosiers enjoy the benefits of higher education. I'm certain that the commission and the new leader are prepared for those challenges and opportunities. So during my years in public service, starting with my years in the Senate, which there were 17 years of those and almost 13 years here, I've had the opportunity to learn a few things about leadership, and I'd like to share just a few of those with you as I conclude. One, hire the best people you can find and they make you better. I did that and it worked. Set high expectations and people will meet them. They did. Don't label people as your opponents or your friends. Opponents are often your best supporters in another battle. Understand another's life journey and you'll understand their priorities and perspective, and that may give you a way to move forward. Stay focused on a plan and let it guide your work and keep you from distractions. And our strategic plans have done just that, I think, for the commission. And the commission have heard me say this many times, and I often use this when I'm talking to a new member who we're hiring, and that is, I sometimes think of myself as a dance teacher. You can fast dance sometimes. You have a big idea and you move it forward, and then you have to slow dance. You have to let people catch up. You have to implement those ideas. And the hard thing is sometimes you have to sit out a dance because it's just not the right time. So I've often thought of myself at this point in my life as a dance teacher. Be bold in thought, gracious in manner, and determined in action. I'll admit I'm still working on this one. Share the credit and assume responsibility for the mistakes. I can provide examples of the mistakes if you want them. Find your voice and don't be afraid to use it. Finally, remember that public service is about making a difference and improving lives, and that's a privilege. As I'm thinking, a lot of times people have asked me about the next chapter. I have several options that I'm exploring. I want this decade to be less about accomplishment and more about purpose. I'm not exactly sure what that looks like, but I'm confident that God is leading me in this journey, which means have another exciting chapter. Again, my deepest thanks to each of you, and I am not a crier. I'll cheer you on. Final thought. My devotions this morning said that, you know, if you have people who say affirming things to you, and people have been so gracious to me as I talked about leaving. My devotion said, you know, don't deflect it, listen to what people say, and then at night, give it all back to God in a bouquet. So I'm giving it back to God.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you, Teresa. We can't express, you know, just the great legacy that you left behind and the appreciation we have for the great leadership that you have provided. And, you know, you talk about the tough times and the hard times, the hard decisions. You've clearly, you know, shown that you have a firm hand, but a velvet touch. And it has really made a difference. And so we appreciate that so very much. We do have some cake back in the back that celebrates Teresa's moving to the next stage of her life. And we don't say the R word, we just talk about something else. So please, she's already cut the first piece. So feel free to go back and help yourself to a piece of cake in celebrating Teresa and the great achievement she's had here at the commission. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Thank you, Teresa. Appreciate it. Well, in your agenda book, there were the minutes from our last meeting, and I do want to offer just a correction to those minutes. The minutes initially reflected that General Studerman was not here, but she indeed was here. That was her inaugural meeting. So we have amended those minutes to reflect the fact that she was here and introduced herself and things of that nature. So with that, are there any other corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to approve those.
So moved.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Very good. Those are accepted. Thank you very much. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we're really delighted to be here at Made at Plainfield, and we're especially happy to learn more about it. So we've got some special guests and institutional leaders that are going to tell us a little bit more about this great facility and the great things that it's doing. Joining us today for a panel discussion, Andrew Klinger, the Plainfield Town Manager, Scott Olinger, Superintendent of Plainfield Schools, Dave Tucker, Vice President of Workforce Development Community Services at Vincennes, and Lori Handy, Vice Chancellor and Campus Operating Officer at Ivy Tech Community College. And we're delighted to have Brandy Perrell, who gave us a great tour this morning, Executive Director of the Hendricks College Network, as well as our own Charlie Beezer, that's going to serve as our facilitator for panel discussion. So I'll turn it to you guys.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to my amazing co-facilitator, Brandy, and our panel for being here today. And thank you for kicking us off with the introduction of everyone. And we're going to take a little bit of time to ask some questions, just have a bit of a conversation, allow you all to ask many questions. There were so many wonderful questions on the tour as well. So please keep the good thoughts coming as we talk through this really innovative workforce and education aligned partnership that runs this beautiful facility. As Chairman mentioned, Brandy is the Executive Director at Hendricks College Network, but also the Executive Director at MAID. She's been with Hendricks College Network for 15 years. This is my 16th. There we go. And I'm a proud Hendricks County resident, so I knew Brandy previous to this. If you are ever in or around Hendricks County, likely you will run into her. She knows who everyone is, who this person needs to know, and which organization they need to get connected to. And then in her spare time, she co-creates, co-working spaces in Plainfield for fun. So anyway, a really good person to know if you've not met her yet. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brandy to give everyone an idea of MAID. We're going to start with sort of the who, the what, and the when, and then we'll talk about the why and how a bit later. So, over to you.
Thanks, Charlie, and welcome everyone. I know that some of you joined us on our tour. It was really just a brief snapshot, but I'm glad that you got to come. We're going to get into the details now and also entertain your questions. We're very much an open book and we learned going through this together and we're still continuing to learn. We hope we can share that knowledge, but also continue to learn from many of you. So again, thank you for being here today. We're excited that we can show off the hard work that's happened over the past 4 years, I believe it's been. And our friends at the table here have all been part of that. They've got deep parts of the story to tell. So Charlie and I will prompt them to share those things. So thank you. You guys saw Vincent's. You've heard from our friends at Vincent's. You saw Ivy Tech and you heard from them. But there are a few others. We mentioned Work One is in our facility. They have been in different locations and they serve Hendricks County and the donut regions through Interlocal Association. But Work One is right out here in our lobby. And we think that's just a great opportunity for people to find their way. So they're coming to Work One for a variety of reasons. We know them as the unemployment office, but they have a lot of other ways to serve people. They are helping with training. And so some of that training happens right here in that building. And we think we'll continue to make that relationship grow and help serve the people from all around. We also have, which you may or may not have noticed, because we didn't mention this much on the tour, but the Department of Homeland Security has their training arm out here. So it's their Indiana Fire Training Academy. Did I get it right, Andrew?
Fire and Public Safety Academy.
Public safety's in there too. Oh, close. But they hang out in this room all the time. Like they were here last night, right before we set up for this today. So they're out here training their fire chiefs and their firefighters on safety and all types of different certifications that they need to do their jobs and protect us well. They're one of our partners that would really like to even grow their presence out here. We'll get to that growth part in a little while. But that's who you're seeing. So Hendricks College Network probably needs explained if you're not familiar with us. I think we're unique is probably why it's a little hard to understand. We're not a college, you guys know that, I think. But we're definitely a part of the community that is promoting things like college, but promoting things like careers and just kind of finding your way. So what I like to tell everybody is that we are a connector. That's what we're doing in this building, and that's what we're doing all around Hendricks County and the surrounding area. So I've run into a lot of you throughout my job in many different ways, but really, I'm just excited to be a part of a community that we can look for opportunities, we won't call them issues, opportunities where we can serve. And then we bring together our friends and we figure out how we're going to tackle that. And it's been rewarding. You said 15 years, I've completed 15 and we're just starting 16, but I love being here. It changes all the time. You know, the past 4 years we've been working on this, but we've been doing other things. Let me tell you what's going on today. I was just telling Commissioner Levers, since you guys picked the busiest day of the year to visit us, and I love that. Today, you might see these around or on the board, we have our college and career fair that we decided to pair up with our apprenticeship and trades fair. That's something we do for our entire county. All of our schools are involved in that. They send volunteers and they send their students. And we have over 130 booths full of each one of the schools that maybe you represent, many of the businesses that you may represent, and anyone who's offering an apprenticeship or training for their employees. So not to be a commercial here, but if you're not busy this evening, from 6 to 8, 6:30 to 8 it is. Out at the fairgrounds in Danville, we'll be offering that. And I truly love to say that there's something for everyone. So come check it out if you want to, but also thanks for putting up with my brain that might be in 2 places today. The part of May that I want to make sure you know is what we're here to do is create opportunity for all. I talked on the tour a little bit about how it's really focused on serving the needs of the workforce. So it's important for us to be talking to our employers and having relationships with them, hearing what those needs are and those pain points. And we know right now, it's just getting people in the door, and we can train them and we'll find ways to do that. And that's what Hendricks College Network is kind of here to do, is to find those opportunities to help get people trained and get them into the careers that make sense for their lives and their success, and to help those employers be successful. Because as we talk about, the more those employers are successful and can pay their bills and pay their taxes, the more infrastructure we have to continue to support them and to continue to have these great communities that people want to live in. And obviously Hendricks County is a great place to be. Plainfield has really made an investment in workforce development and education, and we're here to tell you a little bit more about it.
I think you're gonna
Yeah.
start off with questions.
Just want to make sure I answered yours well. I think you did just fine. Okay. So you kind of heard who's here today, and we're not representing all of our partners, but they have some significant parts of the story. And if you notice, we've got our good friends Vincent's and Ivy Tech hanging out in the same place, hanging out in the same building, and that doesn't always happen. So we're going to ask them to talk about some of the ways that we work through that. But where it really started is with these two guys over here. They had some ideas, some discussions. Scott Olinger is the superintendent of the Plainfield Community Schools, and you were having some talks with some people you know around this state. That's kind of where this came from. And Andrew, our town manager, has been a big part of that. And you've heard that this kind of belongs to the town, but I'm going to let him tell you exactly how that works out too. So Scott, do you want to start and tell us a little background?
Sure. Well, first off, welcome to Plainfield. I'm Scott Olinger, Superintendent of Plainfield Schools. We are a corporation of about 6,000 students. I like to say we're the best corporation in the state of Indiana, and we are. We have great people who work for us, and you're actually, at one time, this was part of our campus, our high school, right across the street. The beautiful campus was built 14 years ago. We still refer to that as a new high school, even though it's 14 years old. But it's just a great facility. How this all, as Brandy said, it started, there were conversations, and it shows how collaboration, sometimes planting a seed, can grow into something like this. And I'm happy to share that, it was about 5 years ago, myself and my high school principal were meeting with Chris Lyle right across the street. We were talking about our relationship and Ivy Tech and how we can continue to grow that. And at the end of that meeting, I said, Chris, let's take a walk. And we walked up to the stairwell over here, and we pointed to this piece of property, and I said, would Ivy Tech build a facility there? And Chris told me, I'll check. And he'll I knew what that meant. But at least we kind of talked a little bit. We said, selfishly from our standpoint, anything that we can do for my kids and get us close, I was willing to try. So we had some conversations with the folks from Ivy Tech, and at one point they said, this is not something they could do alone. So then I reached out to Andrew and to Robin Brandgard, and we have a great collaborative relationship. And at that time, we knew they were in conversations with Ben Sims. And we said, well, let's get around the table. And that's what we do here in Plainfield. When we have problems, we problem solve, and we get around the table like this. So we got everybody together across the street over in our library. And we said, how can we make this happen? And then it just took off. And that just shows you, this came from a conversation 4.5, 5 years ago to you're sitting here now, and that's how quickly things move. And it's been a great working relationship. Again, from a selfish standpoint, we still don't know how we're best going to use this with our kids. But that wasn't the point. The point was to get it here and then take our time and build those relationships. We've already had a great relationship with Ivy Tech. We had programs with Ben Sims. And I'm excited. If you see there's even a crosswalk going across the street here, our kids will be able to just walk across the street and take classes. And we'll be figuring that out over the next few years and how we can best utilize it. So I'm excited from not only for the town, but for Plainfield Schools. And it's been a great partnership. I want to commend Brandy. Brandy came onto this as well in those early stages, and we wouldn't be here without the work that she did. This was something so thank you, Brandy, for everything that you did to make this come to fruition. And so, again, I want to just thank you. Welcome. I'll let Andrew talk a little bit, but we have such a great relationship here. Andrew was just telling me before we sat down, he said, we need to get together again and talk about some other things. And we are growing and so forth. And we are, you see a lot of times school corporations and local government are odds. We are not at odds, and we have a great relationship and work really well. And that's why Plainfield is thriving as it is today. So yeah, I'll let Andrew just
Well, thanks. Yeah, Andrew Claire, I'm the town manager here, and Scott said it. Well, first, I gotta say thank you all for coming here, and welcome to Plainfield. We very much appreciate you coming here and having your meeting here. I can independently validate what Scott said, that it is the best school corporation in the state, so.
not that his kids go here.
But seriously, the things that our school corporation is doing from elementary all the way up through high school, the different types of programming and just the way that they approach things, the hands-on learning, the imagination lab, idea lab, all these different things. There's so much more we'd love to show you all if you want to see it someday. But it all fits in with this here too, right? This was the piece that was kind of missing, was the education, what's the next step after high school. And so, but yeah, Scott already said it, the idea really kind of originated with him, through those conversations with Ivy Tech, and then he contacted Robin Brandgard, who's the town council president, and myself, and we sat down and talked and started to see that, there might be a way that we could, using our existing partnerships. So the town had an existing relationship with Vincent, with David down there on the logistics training and education center, which was previously a warehouse space to the east here. And they were looking for new space at the time. And so it just, the kind of the stars aligned a little bit. And we started that conversation. And so the town put up a little bit of money to do a feasibility analysis to see, hey, is this something that really could work and could make sense? And we looked at some other similar type of models around the state. I don't think there's really anything that matches what we've done here, but there are some similar models, and we've looked at those. And it started what was, has it been 5 years now? It was a 5-year journey to get to here. But each step of the way, things just seemed to work out, and the relationships built. And it turned into really a construction project of, hey, what if we had a facility that could house these different programs, these different institutions right here next to our high school, and the benefits that come from that. And so the land, the piece of property, as Scott said, it was actually owned by the school corporation at the time. The town actually, the way we kind of finance this, I don't know how far you want me to get into it. The way we finance this was, we leveraged tax increment finance, utilizing all of the industrial space. I mentioned on the tour earlier, we have almost 50 million square feet of industrial space just to the east of us here, primarily logistics and e-commerce type of activity. And so we have tax increment financing districts over those different industrial areas, and we were able to leverage that TIF money to be able to build this facility. And so we went out and did a bond. It's about a $35 million project. And so we bonded against that TIF increment to be able to build out this facility. And so, so the town really kind of took the leadership in that piece of it in terms of the capital to go into it. And we had lots of conversations about how could we finance it, but my town council basically said, we don't want to wait. We were just going to do it. And so they stepped up to the table and made that happen. And so, you know, again, we spent the last several years partnering with all these great institutions. We're trying to figure out, make sure that we had a model that works. And it's continuing to grow, and we're really excited for the future. As Scott just said, you know, where things are going. We have some other partners that I think we're trying to bring in now, that are only going to make this a better facility and have more offerings for the people who need it. And as you know, the motto is creating opportunity for all. That is ultimately the vision, is wherever you are in your walk in terms of education, that you can find something here that will take you to the next step, right? And so, so yeah, again, just very excited about what we've been able to put together here and what it's going to bring for the future. So what else do you want me to do?
Well, Andrew, we always get questions about what's the structure. Someone asked me today, is this an Ivy Tech building or a Vincent building? Yes and yes, but can you share how the structure works?
It is actually, the building itself is owned by the Plainfield Redevelopment Commission. Since we use tax increment finance to finance the structure, that all went through the Redevelopment Commission. And so ultimately the building itself is owned by the commission. And then we set up partnership arrangements with all of our, the institutions that are partners here to be able to provide the operating dollars, right? So Ivy Tech, Vincent's, Department of Homeland Security, Work One, all the partners contribute into for the space that they utilize to help fund the operations of the facility. And then, of course, Brandy also an HCN part of that as well, and provides kind of some oversight and program management for the facility as well. And so, so they're, we call them partnership agreements, but essentially it is a lease for, so each partner has some designated space. As you got the tour around, you saw, you know, Vincent's is mostly first floor, Ivy Tech is mostly second floor, DHS is just down here. And so they have some designated spaces, but we also built in shared spaces. So like this facility, this room, and then we have some classrooms that are also shared spaces. So we really created it to be a collaborative environment where all of the entities can work together to make sure, again, that it works well and that we're providing the diverse programming to attract students into the facility. And so, so while there are dedicated spaces for each entity, we also encourage them to share. If Ivy Tech needs an extra classroom for something, they can go to Vincent's and say, hey, can we use, if you're not utilizing this classroom on Tuesday nights, can we do that? And like I said, we also have shared classrooms that are available as well for use by all of the entities. Department of Homeland Security, as Brandy already mentioned, uses this space quite a bit for their programming when they're bringing in, particularly, so the state mandated certain training for fire chiefs about a year or two ago. And so they brought their first cohort of fire chiefs from all over the state. They did their training in this room last fall, and they're going to continue to do those cohorts to make sure they're meeting their requirements under the law. So, so it's, yeah, so it is, it's a mix, but truly we're trying to create really a collaborative environment here.
Well, let's hear from some of the entities. Dave and Lori, I'm really wanting to turn to you both to talk from the higher education perspective of the value that your institutions have realized from being a part of this partnership and in the building, the experience that you've had in collaborating. And I know, you know, Dave and I were talking just briefly, and we don't want to beat around the bush. It's not always easy to do something like this. So I really would like, I think, everyone to hear, you know, the reality of the situation, what challenges you faced and what do you still face going forward. Lori, why don't we start?
Yeah, hi, Lori Handy, Vice Chancellor with Ivy Tech Indianapolis campus, which also serves Hendricks and Boone County, in addition to Marion County. I would just say that at Ivy Tech, we had a location in Avon for about 10 years, and that lease went up 2 years ago. So we knew long-term that we did not want to stay. It was in a strip mall at the time. And we knew that we really wanted an educational facility that felt more like a college, you know, feel. And so when the lease was coming up at Avon, was right at the same time that we started these conversations about coming to the main facility. And so we did have some bumps in the road because our lease was up and this building wasn't done, and then COVID, which we haven't even talked about that yet. And so we had a temporary location for a while, but since we've been here, it's been really great. Our enrollment has doubled from the fall semester to the spring semester. Everything is face-to-face this semester. We have over 750 students here this spring. Our testing center has already served this year over 1,000 certification exams. So it's just bustling, and we just know that the future is to just grow from here. And then just increase our partnership with our K through 12 partners. We already offer many dual credit classes at Plainfield High School, Area 31, Avon High School. So how do we get those pathways much more aligned is really what we have to look forward to in the future. And I'll let Dave kind of talk next, and we'll talk about some of the fun challenges we had along the way.
Well, you know, similar to Ivy Tech, VU's had a presence here in Plainfield for now 10 years. We opened the Voltech facility in 2012 over on Ronald Reagan Parkway, and had a very good experience there. And being able to set up our first facility there was largely driven by the partnership with the town of Plainfield to begin with. And just a quick story on that, when we started looking at how we could upgrade what we do around supply chain and logistics, all of our programming is based in southwestern Indiana on our main campus. And so, you know, naturally, the crossroads of America would be the place to come to. You know, in 2010, Plainfield didn't have 50 million square feet. They only had 30 million square feet, which was a huge number for us. And so we thought, why not be in Plainfield? Why not be here in the crossroads of America? And Robert Brangard, at the time, we were looking at doing a little 5,000 square foot kind of place where you could train for truck and maybe move some things around. And Robin Brangard said, dream big. And I think that's been the thing about our entire experience at Plainfield was that Plainfield inspired us. Dream big. And we dreamt big and took on 33,000 square foot warehouse over there on Ronald Reagan Parkway. But it was a warehouse and not that easily adaptable to classrooms and labs and things like that. And so when it came time to do the next Dream Big experiment, we were able to sit down with the architects and the planners and with Ivy Tech and really say, this is exactly what we want. And so I hope those of you who had a chance to tour the facility today and see what we're doing at VU, I mean, we were able to really plan that out exactly. This is where we're going to put certain labs. This is how we're going to lay out our warehouse facility. And it allowed us to do it within a smaller square footage. We can actually do more with a little less. So now we're at about 25,000 square feet. Oftentimes these projects, a project, there'll be a K through 12 partner, there'll be a local partner, there'll be a higher ed partner. You always have to have that combination to put forward a workforce, an effective workforce program. Oftentimes, there's one of each, and oftentimes in the higher ed space, it'll be Ivy Tech, or it'll be VU, or it'll be another higher ed partner. And certainly, got to credit Chris Lowry and Sue Elsterman, who invited us in in the very beginning. And we met down at Kathy Lee's office down on the main campus in Indianapolis. And it was another one of those, examples that Scott, kind of put forward. Chris and Sue said, well, how about us doing a big project out in Plainfield? And what I say, I'll look into it, which I did, and Chuck Johnson, who's been very supportive of what we do around workforce programs, said, let's go explore this. So it's been a great experience for us. This is a place where when you show employer partners what you're doing, they cannot help but be impressed. And certainly learners, when they get exposed to this, when they see what we're doing out there,
But I think we made it through that, and I appreciate you asking about that, because it was a worry that didn't really win. Thank you.
I think just to accentuate one of your points there, because you said there's a few of us sitting here at the table, but there was an awful lot of people involved in this project. Obviously, with a project like this, to take it from concept to construction, usually we were sitting in a setup like this with about this many people all sitting around the table, contractors and engineers and architects and all the, all the different institutions. And so it takes a lot of people to pull off a project like that. So I just want to, say, hey, it's more than just a few of us are here representing all those other people who helped make it happen. Yeah, communications folks as well. Yep.
Did you guys ever come up with the name MADE? Does it stand for anything? Yeah, I was like, did I miss that? Or, there's gotta be a reason behind it. So I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ann, I appreciate that. Actually, Scott said communications. We had some communications people on staff, but let me tell you what MADE stands for. It stands for Make, Achieve, Design, Educate. We've got some other words like design your future or whatever that kind of go with that as taglines, but really just an inspiration to make it what we need and do that through education and training. So that's really what it's supposed to stand for. We don't say that out loud very often. Thanks for that reminder.
Our communications folks put that together. And I think it's actually supposed to be a flexible acronym, right? So it can mean different things to different people, right? So the acronym to a student might be what Brandon just said, make, achieve, design your education. But from an employer perspective, it might be something different, right? So it's kind of and I don't remember what we came, I think it's on here, yeah. But it's kind of a flexible acronym.
Good. Well, thanks for sharing.
Well, and actually, I think the concept, when we were talking about it, when we were like, if this takes off, what if there was like a MADE at Muncie or a MADE at Valparaiso or a MADE at Sellersburger, or whatever.
Is it okay to ask
Of course.
a question? I'm curious, Scott, sort of two questions. One is, it sounds like you came up with the idea, this land, you came up with the idea, and which, by the way, congrats to you, to all of you. I mean, this is fabulous. And there's nothing more needed in our state and central Indiana than a facility like this. But I'm curious, Scott, what your vision was, because this is bigger than just the high school. That's kind of the question. And then secondly, do your high school students get an opportunity to come over here and get certificates while they're still in high school? And how does that work?
Well, I'll answer that question first. Yes, they will. And that's something that we're still working through. I mean, this has only been open for a year. So we're still trying to figure that piece out. It's here and how we can, we do have teachers who go into our building and teach classes, but the whole idea was for us to have something here that our kids could come over and take those classes. But it's going to take us a while. We want to be very mindful of that piece of that, make sure we get it right. So we're having conversations, and I know my assistant principal over here at the high school does all of our curriculum, is currently working both with Vincennes and Ivy Tech to kind of look through that. But really, yeah, it was selfish on our part. I was just thinking about Plainfield High School, to be honest, but I also know we're a part of Area 31. And somebody who is a part of that, there's 11 school districts, they're out of space as well. So when we started talking about this, Patrick Biggerstaff from Area 31 was also involved in some of those early conversations with Randy, because at some point we know that they're outgrowing that facility. So there's been actually some conversations that at some point, could some of those classes be offered here, not just for Plainfield students, but for everybody in the county and the 11 school districts that represent Area 31 as well. So I think that it's one of those pieces that we're just going to, over time, have to kind of explore and continue to, we want the space first, and then we'll figure out that piece, get the right people on the right seats on the bus, so to speak, as to how we use it.
I just think when you think about the high school students who are not planning anything post-secondary, right, then for them to have the opportunity to get a certificate over here with a higher value, certificate, it's a huge plus.
Well, that's the value of being right across the street.
Right.
I mean, we're hoping that our kids at some point, you'll see throughout the day, on a normal high school day, you'll see kids walking back and forth, taking classes here and so forth. That's what I would hope down the road that we get to.
I'll give you one example, and a shout out to Angela Davis, who's our site manager here, but we identified Project Lead the Way students at the high school taking design technology classes, and we're between Area 31 and the high school and just needed one more class to get that technical certificate, and we're offering that class here, and we're scholarshiping those students to get them in here and get that completion done. So I mean, kudos to her for identifying this little gap
Right.
in our curriculum, to work with our partners to make that happen.
Terrific.
We do have logistics courses through Area 31 that are happening in this building, so that is one of them. And I have plans with Patrick, actually, I think in about a week to discuss more, and I'll clue everyone in.
Can I ask a quick follow-up on that? Because that was one of my questions, was the relationship with the broader CTE curriculum and how do you weave that together? It seems logical that it would. Side, has there been any discussion or are there plans in the future for any of the four-year institutions to be partners in this in any way, shape, and form?
To read my notes.
Stackability.
We asked it, did you read your notes?
We do have plans for that. So a couple things, all throughout this process, we had plans for and you guys might have seen them if you were here earlier in the day. There were some administrators from a certain four-year institution in Terre Haute, and I'm just going to say it, Indiana State University. They were hanging out because they are going to be locating in the hall, well, the room where you had lunch. And so they are looking at presenting their professional MBA here. It's the only place they've ever offered it off campus has been in one of Scott's facilities, the transportation center.
Just a little bit east of here is where they've been the last few years, so now they're going to
Yeah,
move it
it's
over here.
a garage, but it's a neat facility.
Transportation center.
Bit more sense now. So we're going to move them over here and they'll be starting that hopefully with their next cohort. So we'll have the master's levels. So we got that little gap there then the bachelor's level. And we want to make sure we're addressing that too. You have that whole continuum of anything from one class up to, a graduate degree. And so we are talking with some great relationships with employers in the community, and so do you guys. And I think that as we look through that, we're going to have some of their students working on projects with local employers and doing that possibly out of these classrooms too, and really focused on logistics. So we're thinking through that. Yeah, Indiana State is on board, and they sent me a message this morning that they felt so fortunate that they could be here. So.
And one example of how these relationships can be, or the programs can be complementary, is that in ISU's MBA program, they spend a lot of times with data analytics that come out of manufacturing and warehouse and distribution facilities. And so these are the, kind of the big number, finance office kind of data things. But if you saw that cell that we have with that FANUC robot and that big control panel, that's the technician level place where so much of that data is collected. So where we are today is with companies collecting that data on the floor, kind of sending it up to the C-suite offices where now they can use that data to make decisions. And we think there are going to be some real life, real time applications of those that will take place right in this building.
As we continue to look at the in-demand sectors, we kind of started with Hendricks College Network really investing in logistics because it makes sense in this community. We got some grants to do it and worked with both partners to provide courses and access to training in that area. And they have done a great job of being very flexible with our employers. I love that about them. We also are now looking at healthcare and what's next there. COVID obviously had quite the effect on all of our lives, but the healthcare industry big time. We've got nurses leaving, we've got practitioners leaving. We need to retrain them. So we have launched just a website this past week that's showing some of those pathways that students can take, and we'll continue to work with our partners to develop those courses that we can deliver out of this facility or online or whatever makes sense most for those programs. So we're thinking ahead and trying to keep up. We're small but mighty, but I want to just go back to what Andrew says. It took a village to get here, and it still does every single day. I get to be the face that tells a story all the time, but I can't do it without all of our partners. And I think that's really the key, is being collaborative and being flexible. And we've found some success from that. Hopefully we can continue to be that way and bring on new partners who are in for that. I think that's one of the big parts, when we're thinking about who's next and who's going to join us, it's people who are our friends. They're going to act like our friends, and they're going to be here with us with the same goals, and we're going to move forward together. It's exciting. But thinking about the future, I think that's where we were headed anyway.
I was going to tee you on.
Yeah, thank you. When we got some of the past and what we're doing in the present, I would love for you guys to talk about what your plans are for the future and just kind of share with you too. I talked about healthcare, and that's where we're headed. Andrew, I might throw it over to you in just a second to talk about some of the ideas that Plainfield has for the future and what we want to do with technology and some of the possibilities for growth here. But we work with the Indiana Talent Network, and if you guys haven't heard of that, it's something I would love to tell you more about. But it's people that are kind of like Hendricks College Network and all across our state, but it might be a chamber of commerce or an economic development organization. And that's led kind of out of the civic labs and Lumina friends, but it's really a network that really connects us to many of you. It connects us to the people in the government, the employers, and to make sure we're all talking and sharing best practices. So I think we're fortunate to be able to be part of that, and that'll give us some momentum forward and some connections. So we're not just, in our little building here. But let's talk about some of the programs that you guys are hoping to bring forward. I know you both have different plans, and they'll probably change as we go, but you want to share?
Yeah, we were excited to expand our medical assisting program to this, to the west side of Indianapolis. Our allied health campus is really in the Lawrence area on the east side of Indy. So we started a cohort here at the Plainfield location, second 8 weeks of last semester. And we will be starting a second full cohort. So there'll be 2 cohorts going through starting this summer. Additionally, we know there's a demand for EMTs. And so we are offering EMT classes here starting in the fall that we collaborated with our Department of Homeland Security partners to make sure they have an EMT training as well. So we made sure we kind of collaborated to make sure we're not overlapping training. So other than that, it's really ramping back up to pre-COVID levels and getting students back in classes and in person. And we offer accounting classes, business, supply chain logistics, a lot of general education, including the great science labs we have, which can prepare, the students can do the prerequisites in science here that we didn't have that availability when we were at Avon. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah. And I know at Vincennes, you guys are really ingrained in what you're doing, but there's opportunities coming. I know we talked about, we have our apprenticeship and trades fair tonight, and you guys have a new apprenticeship program, I think, coming, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we want to stay on the front edge of technology in logistics, as well as automation and robotics. And so we're gonna continue to keep increasing our technology in those areas, growing our partnerships that we have. It's a big advantage when you talk to potential partners about supply chain programs or about automation and robotic programs, when you have Amazon as your training partner. We were the first college in the country that they partnered with to do this type of training. And we continue to do it on a big scale. But when you do that, that puts you in a position where plenty of other partners want to work with you. And so certainly on the apprenticeship side, we have a long experience working on apprenticeships. The Amazonians who are here, they're in a DOL apprenticeship program. But the next partner on is Allison Transmission. And we've done some work with them, but this particular facility puts us in a position where we can do a great amount of their, what you call related technical instruction, in their trades. Another big name partner that will start training here, in the spring is Conagra Foods. And so, these are big companies, that are moving rapidly, into, advanced manufacturing, and automation. And so we're very excited to be partnered with those companies on those kinds of things. And then, when we see opportunities, we work with, we have, Lori and I have ongoing conversations about, okay, well, we've been approached about doing a pharmacy tech online program. Well, we've kind of identified our lanes. And I think in one of these projects, it's very important that your partners have clearly identified what their focus is, what their priorities are, and then also to be in communication with your partner that's in the other lane. But so on pharmacy tech, that was one where Ivy Tech said, sure, go ahead and do that. Another program that we're looking at is non-credit cybersecurity for supply chain. And while they do the supply chain degree and while they do IT, that's not something that they necessarily do. So that's another opportunity where we're visiting about, okay, here's an opportunity that's been presented. Should we do it? Should you do it? How can we go about moving that forward? And remember, it's always in the best interest. What's in the best interest of the learners? What's in the best interest of the employers? What's in the best interest of the state of Indiana?
And we have a committee that comes together to talk about what those opportunities look like and how we're going to address them. And Charlie has joined that too. So we have representation from the commission as well. We like that. Andrew, just maybe briefly, you can share with us what's next for May. Did we build this building too small?
Yeah, well, if you listen to Robert Brangard, he'll say, yes, we did. He kept pushing us to make it bigger. He said, and obviously you have budgets you gotta meet, but he was probably right that we built it too small because we're filling up the space very quickly. And I think there's been increased interest from other partners that we've already talked about who would like to have additional space. And so I will say this, I don't think it was mentioned on the tour, but the building was built in a way that it is expandable. So the building can grow to the north and to the south and out here to the east. And so it's a facility that can be expanded if the demand is there and we can align the finances to make it happen. And I did note to check out the window upstairs, you can see the land out there. So we do have property that, I think long-term vision that you could actually start to build out a campus type of environment with some different partners and different types of programs. So that's kind of my long-term vision. I don't know how long it takes us to get there, but we have that capacity, that ability to grow and expand at the facility and programming. And so very excited to see where that goes. One thing that is really in my focus right now in terms of growth is this idea of a center for applied technology and logistics. So from my seat as a town manager, I don't know a lot about the higher education world. I defer to these folks, but I know that we have an industry here in Plainfield that is growing fast and they are struggling to find workers. And, everybody is right now in this current labor market. Hendricks County's unemployment is less than 2%. So that's a challenge. And so the industry, we're seeing it already, is going to become more technologically advanced and more reliant on technology to grow. And, we use Amazon's an example of that, right? They're probably on the cutting edge of that as both a logistics and a technology company. They have been very quick to adapt to technology. And I think we're starting to see the others doing the same sort of thing. We have a Kohl's, we have multiple facilities out here now that are lights out facilities, which means that essentially there's no people there. It is almost fully automated. The Kohl's distribution center, 200,000 square feet of essentially lights out facility. It's a total of 750,000 square feet, but the huge chunk of it is just lights out. It's fully automated. So, and so, where I'd really like to go and what the town would like to do, and actually, I think it's worth saying here that the town understands that this is a regional asset, right? I key in on the industry here and how do we make sure we're meeting the needs of our local employers, but we understand this is a regional asset and that it's doing far more than just benefiting town Plainfield. But, town, my council has kind of had a history of being willing to put money up to fund regional type of assets. And we're working on an art center right now that will be a regional asset as well. So, and so, we're kind of proud of that fact that we can bring something to the table that supports not just Plainfield, but all of Hendricks County, the west side and central Indiana. And so, we're excited about that opportunity, but really keying in on how do we help this local industry in terms of supply chain and logistics to become more technologically advanced, to apply these technologies that we're seeing coming out of the academic world, things like blockchain and you've heard some of these things, use of drones and autonomous vehicles. And these are things that are happening out there right now that have benefits for the logistics industry. And so how do we help our local businesses, not just local in Plainfield, but really statewide? How do we help them apply those technologies to their business model so that they can become more efficient in what they do? And that is going to mean that the employees that they are hiring are going to need increased skill levels, right? And so that's where these folks come in. to help us to skill up people to be able to meet those jobs in the future. And so that's kind of my immediate vision for the future. We're already starting kind of a feasibility analysis of what that Center for Applied Technology might look like. How might we be able to fund that? And so that's kind of my next step right now. And then obviously, the idea would be that that would be something that could actually be housed here as part of the main program. So that's one idea in my head, I guess.
It's a good one.
Can I ask a follow-up to Andrew on that point? Sorry to interrupt it. It's okay.
Yeah.
So I really give you and the town a lot of credit for your far-sighted thinking around investment, not just on the local level, but at a regional level and how that plays out. I think it's brilliant and much needed. And you talk about the automation side, but on the flip side, how have you talked about and thought about how this plays into your overall opportunity to grow your population, to think about talent attraction and retention to meet those? I mean, they're not going to automate their way out of the challenge. None of us are in that regard. So we have to supplement it with obviously talent development. So how does that fit in overall?
Yeah, it's certainly part of the puzzle, right, in terms of talent attraction, to be able to have opportunities here where people can come and skill up and be able to meet the needs of the industry as they're evolving. That helps us from an attraction standpoint. Of course, it fits in, like I said, it's one piece of a puzzle because we're also looking at how do we attract people from an amenity standpoint, all the work the town has done. When I just mentioned the art center, right? That's a piece of that puzzle. It's how do we create an attractive community where people want to come and live here and work here. And so there's a lot of different pieces to that, but certainly this is a key element.
Thank you.
So we have always depended on the commission to really help guide us with reminding us of goals like 2025, goal 2025, work towards that as a community. The more educated people we have, the better we all are. And so we're working towards that, but we rely on you guys for data and reports and goals set for us across the state and then adapt them to what works in our own community. Do you want to share kind of where you guys are at? I know you've released some of the reports recently. We'd love an update.
I always love to talk about our reports and our data generally and the strategic plan. Haha, I thought we were going to get out of here without mentioning how all of this ties to our strategic plan. And this is, again, you probably discerned the how and why, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to get to that as the conversation has gone. But as you mentioned, yes, our state has a 60% goal aligned to future workforce and need and job needs. Not just a number we plucked out of the air. This is really truly aligned to the job needs of the future. I did look up some Hendricks County specific data yesterday. Congratulations, Hendricks County. You guys are kind of at the top. I think you knew that already. Of Indiana's counties in terms of educational attainment, over 50%. And that, of course, doesn't account for short-term certificates. So it's likely a bit higher than that number even. And you've increased 7 percentage points over the last 10 years. So congrats and kudos there. Your college going rate is also quite a bit higher than the statewide average, 68% in 2019 compared to 59% statewide. But one of the most important parts that we talk about in the strategic plan, and we call it out specifically, is innovation. And that requires, approaching persistent challenges in higher education, the changing learner demographics, emerging economic demands. Again, we put this out right at the beginning of 2020, so we didn't know how prescient that was really going to be, but to do that all in effective and creative ways, and it's being intentional and proactive about showing students, families from a young age, from K to 12, all the way up through the workforce. So the proximity to Plainfield Community Schools, even though that's still developing and how that's really going to shake out, is such an important and great example of how we like to say, both Commissioner and Dr. Jenner, how we're blurring the lines between K-12 and higher education. And so I think that's really coming alive here in this community. So you're all rightfully focused on the why, which is, all of us collectively working toward reaching our 60% goal. As a state, we're just right under 50% right now. And so then this is the how, right? The building that we're sitting in, the work that you're doing, the collaboration and partnership that all of you have worked on together. I think I was flipping through the strategic plan last night. I have boxes of them in my office, by the way, so if anyone runs out, let me know. And we, in our blueprint, we divided up the strategic plan under different sections, and I was reading through the community engagement section, and it's like every single one sort of exists here, which is really impressive. Everything from, talent to the equity level to the completion priorities. And so I think we should all be commended for that. And I say that because I am a fan and I sit on the board, so it's a little biased, but not a lot. So I think it's really safe to say that that entire section is really coming to life here. But I think there are, as you've mentioned, more opportunities for this to continue growing. Some of the ways that you're thinking about the future, I think, as Dan mentioned, is also rightfully forward thinking. But I just want to drive home, I will always do that as the commission representative on the board. Can't do it alone. We're all working together. We all have different missions, as we sort of mentioned this morning with our talk about mission differentiation. And so I think the more that there can be made at, what did you say, Muncie and Sellersburg, and or whatever in Muncie and Sellersburg, whether it's made or not, that all continues to build and pull us all together as a community toward the statewide goals. Did I hear what you were saying?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, back like you were trying to compliment. Can you give us more compliments, please? I just, thank you so much. But it really is some great people working hard together is the point.
It's really impressive when I come to the board meetings and you're just all so excited still 5 years later, which is very impressive.
Just real quick, in terms of that transferability, it is my understanding, at least, that Hancock County is part of their Ready grant process. They're essentially looking at this model. They've come through this facility repeatedly, looking at something similar to this model for Hancock County out towards the Mount Comfort, that industrial area there, and just supporting the folks on the east side. And so I know already we're seeing people who are saying, hey, how can we transfer this model to another part of Indiana? So that's exciting.
Comment, please. I know right now your students are primarily being pushed by their employers, Amazon, Detroit Diesel, Allison, all that. But a question that I had during the tour was how many of the students here are veterans? And if you're looking for people who have a good work ethic, who've worked under some of the worst circumstances you can ever imagine, and when they leave uniform service, they're looking for a place for their family to settle and be safe and be happy and have lots of things to do. This is the kind of community that it would be really wonderful if you could pull them in somehow when you get beyond when you're only getting what the employers are sending. Because this is the kind of environment that our veterans need, and they deserve it as well, and they won't let you down.
Yeah, and I would say that the community certainly would be very open to that, and Brandon knows more about it than I do, but several years pre-pandemic, we had a potential partner that we were trying to work with that was trying to do exactly that, bringing veterans into training programs. Now that never really quite came together the way we had hoped, but I think absolutely it would make sense to try to revive some of those concepts working with these existing partners here. Like how can we attract veterans into those programs? Yeah.
And Vincennes is designated as a military-friendly school. We very actively work with active reservists and veterans to take their military experience and translate that into college credit. So very often, we see a veteran come to us. We evaluate their transcript. Oftentimes they picked up some credits while they were in the military. Their military experience translates to credits, and so then getting them that career-oriented piece to move them into a career makes all the sense in the world. We've had a lot of success with that.
Good. I've been looking at Purdue Global, and I pretended like I was going to be a student, so I signed up and did all that because I thought, that what better way to figure out how Purdue University Global is handling their military students, and it's Army-centric. It's very Army-centric. Now they have, you like that. I don't. Yeah, but I just want to make sure that when you do that, is it something that they can go online and plug in what their MOS or AFSC was, and it computes it or how?
I wish it were that automated. It's not quite that automated, but we have military transcript reviewers, who receive information in, and then, and we go through that, we go through that exercise. And, we're very engaged, with the Navy, primarily, with the Army somewhat, we're very engaged with the Coast Guard. We have an instructor right now who's on a Coast Guard cutter, in near South America, the Antarctic, on a research, mission, teaching a couple of classes while they're at sea.
Oh, that's awesome. But just remember our veterans.
I think they're a great answer to some of our workforce challenges. Automation, you can't automate your way out of it, but who knows logistics better than our military, right? Yeah.
Not to belabor this point, but I really appreciate you bringing it up. But what challenges did you have with the group before that was trying to facilitate veteran
Yeah.
inclusion? And
We need to get that back on.
yeah, there are specifics that need to be improved to make it easier. What challenges do you see in terms of tapping into that talent pool?
There were a lot of, with that particular partner, there were a lot of challenges that I don't know that I can get to all of them, but it came back to, of course, to resources, right? Yeah.
It's kind of an open question, but.
Yeah. So, I mean, it comes back to resources, I think. And I mean, to be honest with you, it's not something we've really talked about in terms of this facility. So I appreciate the question because I think it's something that we can explore. And how do we set it up to ease that transition for veterans to come into these type of programs? So it's something we really haven't thought much about at this point.
Great to explore more of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that we're about wrapped for time. Are there any other questions from you all that we can answer or take back for further discussion?
Very good. Well, thank you all very much for being with us today. It's a pleasure to have you, and thank you for your innovative perspective, Scott, in visioning this, and Andrew, and executing, to Ivy Tech and Vincennes as well too. It's a brilliant strategy and obviously making a huge difference, and just on the early stages of the impact that it's going to have here in Hendricks County, but quite frankly throughout central Indiana and Indiana as well. So thank you. Congratulations. Well done. Okay, let's move now into our business items. And on page 9, we do have one academic program on the agenda for expedited action. It's a Master of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis to be offered by Purdue University Global. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is passed and approved. Thank you very much. Next, we'll go to some capital projects. We have one for full discussion. The Purdue University West Lafayette Life Sciences Ranges Phenotyping Greenhouse Building, found on page 11 of your agenda book. I'd like to ask Alicia Mesker from Director of Government Relations for Fiscal Policy Analysis to give her perspective. So Alicia, it's up to you.
Thank you. And I also, before I start, want to mention that we have Dean Clout from our College of Agriculture Administration here. So I'm going to talk a little bit, then she's going to talk more specifically to phenotyping, and then I'll get into our actual project and break down our budget, and obviously take any questions. So what I wanted to do is start by highlighting a little about our recent recognitions and other work that we're doing at Purdue. It indirectly affects the project and others that we bring before you, and we don't really get a chance to talk about these things, but I think it's in light of the conversation that we had 2 weeks ago. So in a recent Zoom that actually the legislative interns had with President Daniels, he told the interns that our goal at Purdue is to produce the best quality for the best price we can maintain. So that's true with regards to our academic standards and tuition, and it's true with regards to our research capabilities and capital projects that we undertake. Not only do we value quality, which I know is very important to you, Commissioner Lamoth, but we value innovation. So Purdue was again named among the top 10 most innovative schools in the nation for the 4th consecutive year. This ranking identifies institutions that have made innovative improvements toward curriculum, students, campus life, faculty, and for our purposes here today, technology and facilities. That innovation to Purdue being named the only university in Fast Company magazine's inaugural that matter. That's alongside other organizations like Yeti, Zoom, GM, IKEA, and 3M. The recognition applauds Purdue for innovations that have served students, their families, alumni, partners, and peers. So sustaining this leadership and innovation is achieved through expanding our research capabilities in buildings like the phenotyping greenhouse that we're going to present to you today. So like I said, before I get into more of the details, I'm going to turn it over to Dean Clout to talk about phenotyping.
Thank you.
Well, it's great to be here today. I love the opportunity to talk about what we're doing, so thank you. I want to talk a little bit about this phenotyping greenhouse and what it means to us. First, a little bit about phenotyping in general. So phenotyping is really identifying the physical characteristics of plants. It requires advanced imaging because it's not only looking at the external characteristics, but we can also look at some of the internal characteristics. So it's things like plant height, leaf angle number, root growth, nutrients within the plant. And the reason that's important is because the environment and management conditions impact what the phenotype of the plant is. And we take that information, we put it together with the genetics, the DNA, and with that, we can determine how the plant will grow, how it will respond to stress, how it will respond to different environmental measurements, and that's why it's important. The ag bioscience industry in the state is very, very robust, so I did want to bring that up, why this is important to do at Purdue. So it's a $52 billion industry. There's 150,000 people directly employed. There's many, many more in the whole ag and food sector. If you give some examples, Corteva used to be known as Dow AgroSciences. That they just moved their global headquarters to Indiana. They're a Fortune 500 company, and they are the 4th largest publicly held company in Indiana. So it goes to the importance of plant sciences. Beck's Superior Hybrid, some of you may have heard of them. They're the largest family-owned retail seed company in the United States. And then we have new startups in the ag tech. It was interesting to hear one of your speakers before talk about the importance of technology in the manufacturing industry. It's just as important in agriculture. And we have a new startup called Inari, who uses some of the latest technology that will help to transform our food system. Indiana ranks 5th in corn production, 4th in soybean. There's over 55,000 farms in the state. 20,000 of those are directly crop farmers, but I think most of us know our animals eat those crops. But it's important to both parts of those industries. We as a university, we have to be on the leading edge. We have to be the ones that help our farmers, help these large companies in Indiana continue to grow. And that's what our phenotyping initiative is all about. So that's why it's important. We started this venture. We've had plant scientists for a long time, but with President Daniels, he started the Purdue Moves, and we were one of those Purdue Moves in 2013. And as a result of that, we really are a global leader in plant sciences. So those programs from 2014 to 2020, the first part of Purdue Moves, they generated over 200 million in new grants and gifts, 345 papers in the scientific literature, 15 plant-related startups that then commercialize Purdue IP and bring that out to start new businesses for the state. And so that was the first initiative. There's now the second initiative, Purdue Next Moves. So we're building on our strength at Purdue in plant sciences. So that's this new phenotyping greenhouse. It fits right with the phenotyping facility we have so that we are expanding our capabilities. And that's really what we're doing, is expanding the ability to use phenotyping, to use data science, to use new tools and technologies to deliver value-added products in the market. It puts Purdue in a class by itself. It puts us in a leadership role, which we started with the first plant sciences moving and continue with that. I know there were some specific questions that I'll address now in terms of how many programs are impacted. It's much of our college, but 6 programs in biology in particular, in addition to ones in our college. So it's 2 colleges, College of Science, College of Agriculture, and then many of our engineers, because this is an advanced facility, also come and use it. You wanted to know about how many students would actually be part of this facility. It's about 1,500 a year, and that's broken down into different groups. There's undergraduates, there's graduate students. We have about 50 plant science faculty that will be using it all the time, as well as 150 graduate students who do their work in those facilities, and undergraduate researchers that always go along with those graduate students that can range from 75 to a couple hundred. This new phenotyping greenhouse puts us in a leadership position, which is where Indiana really needs to be, specifically in the plant sciences area, an area that is so strong in the state and is so vital to the economy of the state. So that's why we want to continue to move this forward. There were some questions, why do it now? Because everybody else is moving forward, and if we want to be in a leadership position, it's important we continue to invest at this time. There's a new society called the North American Plant Phenotyping Network. We actually started that network. It now has all sorts of global competitors, and we're going to have our next meeting in 2024. We were selected as the site to have this. This greenhouse will be done in 2024. So another way we can showcase what we're doing. That meeting is attended by people all across the world. And we're excited to be able to build this, have this additional piece in time for those people to enjoy the leadership position Purdue has in the plant sciences. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alicia. And
I
then,
have a quick question.
okay,
So to try to put it into layman's terms.
Yeah.
Okay. So with it getting hotter and like we're in the corn belt, I have a farm, we grow
Right.
corn and beans.
Yep.
But as it gets hotter, that will move north, right? Potentially,
so
or the climate is more conducive.
there's 2 ways to think of it. One is that we change what we grow,
Exactly.
and we can do that, or we make our plants more adapted to the
So
conditions.
this phenotyping
Yeah.
will do that, right?
Exactly, and I'll give you a specific example of some of the tools we have now. We actually, so if you get more rain, your roots are gonna change, or if you get no rain, your roots change. We actually have the capability to X-ray the roots. So they're in a pot. We can feed them different amounts of water and actually see how that changes the roots. Then you take that with the genetic information and you make roots that go down deeper, spread out more so they can take advantage if it's a drought, or in the opposite situation, you grow different kinds of roots. So we can do all that and figure out how well plants adapt to that. Also, if we end up doing new varieties, we can, this facility is really cool because it can do up to trees. So about a 20-foot tree can all fit in these facilities. So we can look at all different crops, and we've done many different crops in these facilities. So it allows farmers to adapt to whatever the conditions look like for the future.
Which that opens, if you're looking at trees, are you also looking at landscaping and yards and grass and fescues and all that?
We can look at any of those crops. We can't do the whole yard in
Right, but
facility.
you could look at grass.
Oh, for sure. And we've done grasses, we've done basil. So we can do all tomatoes have been in there. One of the new capabilities that comes with this new greenhouse is we can actually isolate diseases and have areas where you expose the plants to diseases and figure out how to detect them really early on. So we can do all of those kinds of things. It really moves the field forward.
Very nice, thank you.
So I have a little bit more information just regarding the specific project. So it was approved by our Board of Trustees in the beginning of February. We'll actually be demolishing 2 existing life science ranges and then constructing this new facility, which is 20,000 gross square feet. The construction of it will be a new and complementary greenhouse, which you heard about. expanding that research capability for phenotyping. Another important piece, which Dean Plow alluded to, is that this is part of our Purdue Next Moves, our strategic priorities for the university that were laid out in April of last year. As part of Purdue Next Moves, we are setting aside about $260 million to these priorities, $182 million from university funds, and then $78 million from external sources. So the cost of this project is $20 million to be paid for by operating funds, which are from reserves. All are secured and budgeted. One thing I would like to know is that our reserves are mostly non-public funds, and it's a fraction of our annual operating budget, but the sources are largely investment income and indirect cost recovery. So I know at the BPC meeting 2 weeks ago, there was some concern over the cost per square foot of this project, which is about $1,000 if you include that $20 million. One thing I want to note, the actual construction cost is approximately $13.8 million, which puts us at about $690 per square foot. So a few things I think are important to highlight with this cost. It is a smaller building on the smaller side for us, so you do lose some economy of scale. The cost of construction is up about 10% this year. However, if you look at some specific items, those have increased more significantly. For example, the cost of roofing materials has doubled. This will be a research quality greenhouse construction as opposed to commercial or production facility. And that comes with a more mechanical system that has to allow for that precise temperature control and humidity control. And then the site that we are building this on, it does have poor soil. And so that is going to require a specialty or deeper foundation for the building. So like I said, the total cost of construction is about $3.8 million. So where does that leave us with the rest of the cost since the total project is $20 million? We have our own internal cost contingency, which is 10.5% of the construction cost. In this cost that you see, that does include our architectural and engineering design costs. We have furnishings and equipment in there. And then one thing I want to talk about that I don't really think we've talked about before you is we do have built into this number $600,000 set aside as a quasi endowment. What that is that we are proactively taking care of our assets. So for each project now, we are setting money aside in a separate fund to cover R&R needs in the future. And then the cost of hooking up utilities is also included. And that cost, along with some construction site work and new technology hookups. One thing I want to do today is ensure all of you that we have vetted this project thoroughly. In preparation for today's meeting, I talked extensively with our AVP for physical facilities and our Director of Capital Asset Management. While these are uncertain times for our economy, we feel strongly that the cost of this project is correct and conservative so that we will not go over budget and you will not see us again having to bring this project before you. Additionally, the project method we are using is construction manager as constructor. That means that savings on the project after the packages are competitively bid, those are returned to the university. Also, just a couple of points on our fiscal management. You know, it was discussed, is now the time for capital or should we hold? What does that look like for higher ed? I think for us, we don't believe that now is the time to hold projects that we have planned years in advance. There's a labor shortage, there are lack of materials, but we don't believe the cost will come down for quite some time. This might be our new reality that we have to live with. That being said, I think you guys all know how seriously Purdue takes fiscal. Announcing that we are keeping tuition flat for the 11th year in a row. We've done this without sacrificing quality, without shrinking investments in our core mission, without increased state appropriations, and without leveraging the future of our institution. So by next year, we will have saved students and their families over $1 billion on education and living expenses. Over that time, we've also been able to significantly grow our revenue. We now serve 25% more undergraduate students annually than we did in 2013. And 2,000 of those are more Hoosier students who are enrolled than 5 years ago. So I could go on about the things we're doing. It's all in our business transformation report, which we've shared with you, and we're happy to share if you have any interest. But for now, I will stop, and I would be happy to answer any questions about the project you may have.
I'm the guy that said I thought it was too expensive. It's about twice as much as a hospital, a new hospital per square foot. And even if you get down to the 600, it's still awfully expensive. And so I was just raising the question. I'm a cheerleader for Purdue and for Mitch and keeping tuition the same. And I know he's a real good manager of finances, but I just thought it seemed excessive being twice as much as a hospital. I know there are conveyors and so forth, but I just hope that they'll do some value engineering when it comes time. This is more of a budget figure. It's not you haven't taken bids or it isn't a quote, you haven't gotten quotation.
We have, yeah, that $13.8 million is our estimated cost of construction for the project.
Well, I just hope that you'll do some value engineering to get that down another 20% maybe. If you can, see what can be done to lower it. This seems like it's sort of expensive, but those are my only comments. I'm all for it. I think it's a great project.
Thanks, Scott. That's a good observation. Yeah. But I think you did a great job, Alicia, in defending it. So, questions for Alicia? Seth, what would the staff's recommendation be, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As Alicia stated, the Budget and Productivity Committee met on February 24th and heard from Purdue University and had a robust committee discussion. Fortunately, I was not there personally for it, but I was able to watch. As you heard today, this project directly supports Purdue's Next Move Plant Sciences 2.0 initiative, which is one of 5 initiatives that are involved in the Purdue's Next Moves program. Following the committee's review and analysis and Purdue's presentation before you today, staff recommends approval of this project.
Okay. Questions? Thank you, Seth. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Erica and Alan. All righty. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Nice presentation. Thank you very much from both of you. Exceptional project. We learned something new today about phenotyping. Certainly. So thank you. Well, as you all are aware, this is today Commissioner Lover's last commission meeting as commissioner. We hope she'll come back and visit once in a while.
I'm not dying, as I said.
No, you're not. So we hope that you'll come back and join us as a guest, and I'm sure you can bestow much wisdom on us in the future as well, too. So certainly, words can't express the value you have delivered, the exceptional impact and legacy that you've left on the commission over these years. Your appointment in 2009, you've championed so many incredible new policies, ideas, and thoughts, and enhanced educational delivery in our state in a dramatic fashion, and impacted our workforce in many other ways as well, too. Again, words can't possibly convey how much we appreciate all that, but I'm very pleased that Dan Peterson's going to try by sharing a resolution we'd like to make in your honor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner. I can tell you, not to be overly sappy here, but it is a great honor for me to actually have the privilege of reading this. I didn't write it, but I will attempt to read it without too much babbling and mispronunciation. But I can tell you, like so many of us, we've all had the chance to work around great leaders through our careers in various forms. And I, without question, can say you're as good a leader as I've ever seen in any front, in any measure of how you determine or define great leader. So again, it's my great pleasure to to read this. Actually, still standing. Resolution honoring Commissioner Lovers, March 10th, 2022. Whereas Commissioner Lovers has served the state of Indiana as Commissioner for Higher Education for nearly 13 years and has devoted much of her life to advancing education and improving the lives of Hoosiers. Being a former high school English teacher, the longtime chair of the Senate Education and Career Development Committee, and the current chair of the Governor's Workforce Cabinet. And whereas Commissioner Lovers was responsible for implementing Indiana's higher education strategic plans and moving the state toward its goal of at least 60% of Hoosiers with education and training beyond high school, gaining 15 percentage points toward that goal over the past several years. And whereas her steadfast commitment to student success and timely completion remain clear in all aspects of her service as Commissioner, increasing on-time completion by 21 percentage points since 2009. And whereas Commissioner Lovers has advocated for many pathways to acquire the necessary education and training beyond high school, including a certificate, an associate degree or bachelor's degree for the jobs of today and the future. And whereas Commissioner Lovers has championed state policies and programs that address educational equity, committing to closing the state's achievement gap and cutting it in half in 2018. And whereas Commissioner Lovers has remained an advocate for college affordability by ensuring continued support for Indiana's financial aid programs, placing Indiana first in the Midwest and fifth in the nation for need-based financial aid. And whereas Commissioner Lovers has continued to champion policies and support for the 21st Century Scholars Program, implementing the Scholar Success Program, increasing 21st Century Scholars on-time completions by 26 percentage points since 2009. And whereas Commissioner Lovers has worked tirelessly to increase college completion, ensure academic quality and student learning, and align post-secondary credentials with meaningful careers. And whereas Commissioner Lovers served with distinction on the Governor's Workforce Cabinet since 2018 and her appointment as chair in 2019, where she worked tirelessly to ensure the alignment among K-12 and higher education, workforce development, the business community, and state policymakers for the betterment of students. And whereas being a first-generation college graduate, Commissioner Lovers has always recognized the centrality of education to a full, thriving life, while also acknowledging the dignity of life experience gained outside the classroom. And whereas Commissioner Lovers served the state of Indiana with distinction for her nearly 3 decades, and the commission is forever grateful for her unmatched leadership and unwavering commitment to our mission. And now therefore be it resolved that the Commission for Higher Education expresses its deep appreciation to Commissioner Teresa Lovers as she concludes her long and distinguished career in public service, and wishes her well as she finds new ways to serve her family, community, and state in this next chapter of her life.
Moved by unanimous acclamation.
I'll ask for a second on that motion.
Yeah, I move it by unanimous acclamation.
Everyone? Aye. There we go. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you again, Teresa. It's incredible. Yeah.
It's been a partnership with all of you.
Okay, well, that was the easy part. Now finding somebody to take your place. And that has not been an easy process, but it has, I think it has been a rewarding process. And I'd like to first thank Judd Fisher for doing an extraordinary job of chairing our search committee. He has really put forth an incredible amount of effort and I think led the process, which has been very robust and I think very successful. Very pleased for his leadership in doing that, as well as the support we received from Liz and Joan, who have done a great job helping, lead us through that as well. But Judd, would you please share a report from the search committee?
I will, thank you. And I will also say thanks to Liz and Joan. I think their help with logistics, communication, other things, and being inside the bubble, the confidentiality bubble for the duration of the search committee's work was, a lot put on them, but they did a great job and kept me from doing and saying any of that. So certainly appreciate your guys' time. So thank you. All right. Well, following Commissioner Lover's announcement last fall, the commission formed a search committee in December consisting of 6 members, including myself as chair of the search committee, Chairman Alley, Dan Peterson, Chris Murphy, Chris Lamoth, and Dennis Bland. We launched a national call for candidates for a period of 1 month and began interviewing or reviewing those submissions in late January. We received numerous applications, including several from throughout the United States. After a series of interviews, the search committee determined with unanimous support our recommendation for the full commission's consideration. Pursuant to Indiana Code 21-18-5-4, the Indiana Commission for Higher Education is the authorized body to approve and appoint the Indiana Commissioner for Higher Education as its chief executive officer. At this time, I'm pleased to put forward Mr. Chris Lowry, who currently serves as a senior vice president for workforce, careers, and adult strategy at Ivy Tech Community College. Chris also served as the chancellor of the Columbus Southeast region at Ivy Tech. And prior to that, he served at Hillenbrand for 19 years in a variety of roles directing policy, government affairs, corporate communications, and engagement. He also was on the Batesville School Corporation Board of Trustees and served as president there for about 7 years. Mr. Lowry's background provided a great foundation for the search committee to work from and make this choice. His experiences are a nexus of education, and service, and the for-profit sector. The search committee unanimously recommends approval of Mr. Lowry for the role of commissioner. I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Are there questions? If not, I'll say, do I have a motion for approval of Mr. Chris Lowry as our next commissioner for the Indiana Commission for Higher Education?
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nobody's opposed, but if they are, say so now, but I knew there would not be anyone. But we're very pleased, Chris. Again, I would say this was a robust process. And, I think we clearly found our first choice and our best choice, and we're pleased to have you. So, Chris, if you would like to offer us anything.
Mr. Chair, Commission members, thank you for this vote of confidence and opportunity to lead the Indiana Commission for Higher Education at such an important time for our state and nation. Commissioner Lovers, Teresa, to you, I say thank you on behalf of a grateful state. Your leadership of the commission, your work as a state senator, the governor's workforce cabinet, as an aide to great leaders like Senator Dick Lugar, set the bar very high. It sets it high for all of us who consider public service at some point in our lives. To follow you is indeed humbling. Commission members, colleagues, and friends, while all of you know this, it is important to pause, as has been done today, but again, to note that under the leadership of Commissioner Lovers and in partnership with the incredible higher education institutions in our state and others, great advancements have been made in terms of completions, our post-secondary attainment rate, the 21st Century Scholar Program, and frankly, too many to name today. Building on this strong foundation, we have an opportunity to work together to do work that remains. I am honored and humbled to have been chosen by members of the commission to follow Commissioner Lovers and to serve in this leadership role. We know that the work that remains includes some of these things. For the past 5 years, as the commissioner has pointed out, we have seen a decline in the college going rate of high school graduates. Nearly 2 million Hoosier working age adults do not have a credential beyond high school. Today, too many people are left behind, as the value of higher education is questioned. And commission members, I know some of us have discussed that, focuses on affordability, career relevance, quality, all of which come to mind, but all of which we can address. For those completing post-secondary credentials, too many are leaving the state. We want them to stick around. As someone who sees the glass as half full, I believe these realities simply point to possibilities. Individual Hoosiers have always been the great engine of this state. And I'm a firm believer that our colleges and universities provide the fuel in terms of education, training, and research, as you have heard today. Our institutions provide that education, that training, and that research to fuel the outcomes of the state. I'm convinced that others can come alongside in this work. We've seen it. Your conversation with the folks from Plainfield today, I think, personifies that. By bringing together leaders from higher education institutions, employers, our partners in K-12 like Secretary Jenner and others, nonprofits, philanthropy, government, and other stakeholders, we can indeed blur the lines and address these challenges. Together, I know we're going to quantify these needs, continue to focus on the strategic objectives, and push for further tangible changes that will catalyze strong economic growth and social outcomes for individual Hoosiers and the great state of Indiana. Once again, commission members, thank you. Thank you for these responsibilities, the confidence you're placing in me. I will readily seek your wisdom and counsel, not only of you, but others in this room and others who are not here today. That's my nature. I look forward to working throughout the state with all of you and others to fulfill the mission of the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. You can see one of the reasons he's going to be another great commissioner. So thank you, Chris. We look
forward to working with all of you.
And we have already had discussions with Teresa and Chris regarding transition. And we expect that Chris will be able to transition from his current position by mid-April. And in the meantime, Teresa's, though maybe gone a few weeks on vacation, is still going to be around to help with that transition and make it as seamless as we possibly can. And so thank you. But I'd just like to, again, thank Judd for his leadership, all of the search committee members that spent a lot of time, Liz and Joan, and also even the staff of the commission, who we reached out and got feedback from them in the process about attributes and things they were looking for. We also reached out to other university presidents and received feedback there. So it really was a broad process that I think yielded a great result. But I appreciate that great team effort to make this, to deal with a very difficult transition to a new commissioner. But I think it'll be successful. So thank you. With that, we have other information in your booklets. That's for your information, beginning on page 21, and you can take a look at those items. Are there any other items of old business which need to come before the commission today, or new business? If not, then I just remind you, our next meeting is June 9th in Terre Haute at Indiana State University, and we look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Congratulations.